Thank you everyone so much for being here, coming to the lived experience of yoga, our yoga teacher training live panel discussion. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Blair Embry. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Prison Yoga Project, and it's really an honor to be here with these amazing participants who have done our yoga teacher training. 200 hours of training and studying and practice. And it's really probably a lot more than that, right? Like those are the hours that you actually have to be recorded for studying. And I know that your journeys before you even came to this training were hours and hours worth of work. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our audience members and people that might be interested in this training. Thank you so much for showing up. I want to acknowledge our beautiful Jen, who is here with us today. She is not feeling awesome, but she still showed up anyway, just to show face. So thank you. And in about a week and a half, she's going to be speaking again further about our yoga teacher training and her journey on one of our podcasts called The Invitation. So we're really excited to host Jen. But Jen's the reason why this training exists. So this training was originally created for women who are experiencing incarceration. So Jen ran, I mean, honestly, I think probably one of the first yoga teacher trainings in a prison in this country. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't. Jen's like,
I'll tell a tiny little
no.
bit. I'll
Yeah,
share a little, and
great.
then if
Yeah,
I
we'd
start
love to
coughing
hear
and
that.
things. But I had grown up with teen parents, 15 and 17, and my grandfather was a youth counselor at a youth center. My dad was incarcerated for most of my life, was system impacted my entire life. But after I lost my husband, my daughter was 3, about 17 years ago, and I got really into my practice of yoga. In that first journey into yoga was the studio, beat yourself up, power yoga, where you don't think, you just stretch and push and harm. But that was very satisfying at the time because that's what I was filled with. And as my daughter got older and realized how unsustainable that was, started looking at yoga for healing. And when I had gotten my teacher training, was drawn to teach out of a studio, to teach for folks who are incarcerated, to teach for folks who were living through trauma, to go into community centers, to really say, this. And again, zero money growing up. I couldn't go to yoga classes. I had Sean Corn DVD or VHSs actually when I started. I had Rodney Yee and Sean Corn VHS tapes, and that was my yoga for a long time. But sort of realized that this practice is too potentially beneficial to hide it away and to have it be exclusive to those who can afford it, to those who look like the pictures. And really wanted to be able to offer this in a practice. So the first day that I walked into a women's prison, I live in New Hampshire, I met with the chaplain and one of the women who was currently incarcerated there, who had been exposed to yoga. Anytime they had a teacher, they didn't have anything sustainable. So they'd have someone come in for, a month and then nothing for a few months and then on and off. And she actually handed me, the whole point of this whole big long story is she had a yoga journal, a photocopy of a yoga journal article about Kath Meadows, who actually taught a YTT in Maryland at a women's prison. And she said, when can we do this here? And I just finished my own YTT. I had no idea what a YTT took or what it would be, but I just knew that that's what we were meant to do. So kind of from that first day, it took 3 years to sort of, for me to learn enough, for me to continue my own education, which again was done in trade for yoga studios to please let me take workshops and more training. And we offered this pilot program of a teacher training. So 10 women who are currently incarcerated at that point became yoga teachers. I had connected with Prison Yoga Project and sort of said, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to offer this and need some support. And then kind of the rest is history. We ended up adapting it for an online platform, which took another year and a half or two. And now we're going on our third cohort of our in this program. And really, again, with a focus on teaching yoga with the understanding that it's so rooted in social justice. It's so rooted in healing. It's so rooted in your own empowerment and leadership, and to really bring that out, that it's not about what do you look like in a pose, but where are you in this body and in this mind, and giving folks that power to spread that sort of relationship with yoga. So that's where we're at with it. But I'll go into more detail later. I'm going to start coughing. But thank you all so very much for being here. Please, thank you for the YTT graduates for sharing. So listen to these amazing folks. Please ask lots and lots of questions. And I hope to see you all on the 8th as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Jen. Great. I see a round of applause happening in the chat as well. Beautiful. Not to call on you so quickly, Priscilla, but so the title of our yoga teacher training is Yoga, Social Justice, and Leadership. Can you talk to us a little bit about the curriculum before we go into a conversation of really that feeds into these topics of what makes our yoga teacher training different than maybe other studio trainings?
Hi, yeah, definitely. I'm Priscilla. I am the PYP IT person, admin, amongst a lot of other things. And as Blair mentioned, I also took the first round of YTT. I also built it online, so I've got like a real personal connection to this course. And yeah, this was my first YTT that I took as well. But it's just so amazing. Even just the prompts, like I can think of a couple of prompts that is like, what is your first memory of race? What is your first memory of certain things like that? And it's great because we touch on specific topics of social justice. We chat about what mutual aid is versus charity, system impacted persons, and systemic racism in the United States. And so I think that's something that definitely sets us apart from other YTTs. And we don't only touch on these topics, we also discuss why yoga, like why to use yoga for system impacted persons, why it's so important to have a trauma-informed yoga practice, and then we also cover accessibility. From what I can imagine I've also gone to a ton of studio yoga. That was my introduction to yoga as well. There can hardly be any offerings of just different ways to do poses. A lot of times the classes didn't seem very accessible, and that's something that we really put a big focus on.
So beautifully said. Thank you. And so for the next 20, 30 minutes, I would love to put the spotlight on our previous participants. And so kind of a couple questions, and then just kind of planting some seeds, introducing yourself, sharing any pronouns that we would love for you to call you by, maybe your first memory of yoga, what brought you to yoga, and what was valuable to you about this training. And I can drop some of those kind of cues or seeds into the chat as well, just to remind you. And so I feel like everyone can probably take 5 minutes to speak. If you only want to speak for 30 seconds or 1 minute, everything's flexible and open, and of course trauma informed of how we hold space. So you're not pressured to do anything. But I'm just really excited to hear all of your personal stories and what brought you to this work. And if anyone feels inspired to go first, you can raise your hand, and I'll pin your video so we can see it beautifully on the recording. And yeah, whoever feels motivated to start the conversation, we can get going. Awesome, Celeste. And unmute yourself too.
My name is Celeste, and I live in Birmingham, Alabama, in the Deep South. My pronouns are she and her. My first experience with yoga was in 2014 when I actually started to even try to practice. I'm a breast cancer survivor, and prior to breast cancer, trying to avoid all those diseases and malfunctions of the body that you know you're going to inherit from other family members. I started working out and eating healthy in my early 30s and wanted to try to delay becoming diabetic because I had saw what diabetes had done to all my sisters and my mom. And so that was my being proactive and taking care of my body. And in 2014, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I had a lumpectomy, and the cancer has started to travel. So I had to have chemotherapy and 6 weeks of radiation. Well, after your body goes through all of that, and they say, okay, well, we're done, you're cured, you can go back to doing whatever you were doing before breast cancer. And what I loved was working out, and I couldn't do that anymore. So it was very disappointing, and believe it or not, traumatic, because I'm trying to be proactive and taking care of my body. I just got zapped with chemotherapy and radiation, and I can't go back to the gym. So through a church small group, they had a small group that was going to be practicing at a yoga studio, and it was hot yoga. And I thought, well, but what I can remember about yoga and what I've seen is easy, it should be a breeze to get back and go back to the gym. Well, it wasn't as easy as I thought, but I fell in love with it the very first class. And at the end of that class, I felt a connection, a spiritual connection that I had never felt before. And I wanted more of that. And I went ahead and did the teacher training, but I never actually got the opportunity to teach. But I was, still interested in yoga, doing a lot of research. And in 2018, I ran across the Prison Yoga Project online, and I signed up to get the newsletter. And I thought, that's really amazing, doing social justice in yoga in the prison system. But then life happened, and I just sort of forgot about it, and retired in 2020 and decided that I could really get involved in yoga. And I wanted to learn other styles of yoga. And I ran across the Prison Yoga Project again. And so I said, this is what I think I want to do, because of, I wanted to be of service. The job that I retired from was of service, but it was stressful, high paced. And this way I got to choose what I wanted to volunteer and do service work. And little did I know that signing up for this training to talk about trauma. I grew up in a traumatic family, adulthood, never learned how to deal with that trauma. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to give them this teacher training. They're going to teach me how to help people in the prison system deal with their trauma. And that wasn't quite how it turned out. And come to find out, I had to start thinking about my own trauma. But I was too far into the program to just quit, because my trauma is what I've been running from for a long time. Memories, feelings that I didn't have a memory, but I just felt icky. And so no matter how much I tried to run from my own trauma, it was still there. And I did not want to go through a teacher training, but I stuck it out anyway. And I had mentioned at the end of the program to build, I did like at the end of the program, what did I think? How did I feel about it? And I equated it to like a puzzle. You know, when you're little, you're growing up and the weather's terrible, and you get a puzzle that's 1,000 pieces or 100 pieces, and you're never going to get it done. And I get all the puzzle pieces and one piece is missing. Well, in my life, the Prison Yoga Project, that teacher training was that missing puzzle piece for me to look at the trauma that I was going through on a daily basis. What was going on, what happened in my past was still coming up in my present and affecting my future. And it's through the Prison Yoga Project teacher training that I got a gift that I never expected. It really affected my life on a personal level. And I wanted to share what I had learned. I'm also in recovery. And I thought, you know, men and women in the recovery community could use some extra tools in their spiritual toolkit. And so I currently now teach yoga at a drug and alcohol treatment center, and they actually love it. And it ties back into the prison part, because a lot of people in recovery or struggling with recovery are in and out of prison. You know, they get out for a little while, they get court ordered to go through treatment and all of these things, and it's a revolving door. And I saw this as an opportunity that the trauma that caused them to have these instances of being in and out of prison or going for long periods of time, there could be some hope for them. Maybe what I experienced in the training that they may experience just doing the practice. And it's amazing because some of them would say, well, Black people don't do yoga. And I said, well, yes, we do. But that's just a stereotype that you see a certain group of people, you know, it's only accessible to a group of people. And my goal is to make it accessible to anyone, whether it be physical trauma, emotional trauma, spiritual trauma, that yoga is a way to reach deep down inside of myself and know that I'm okay in the skin that I'm in. And when I have those, my body is remembering what's going on, my brain is not. I now have the tools and the resources to recognize that's in my past, what's going on in my present, and should it affect my future. And I have some tools that I can, and I have a joy and a happiness now that I never thought I would ever experience from yoga. And I feel good. I've lost a little weight. I'm getting a little tone and, you know, get some compliments. And I said, okay, so I'm looking kind of cute. And I'm getting the mental part, the spiritual part, it's a wonderful thing. And I want to share with others what the program has given me. The training is awesome. Jen, everyone that I've met with the Prison Yoga Project have inspired me and given me a joy that is pretty awesome. And I want to give back to what they've given to me. And that's all I got. Thank you.
That was such a beautiful share, Celeste. Thank you for bringing us through your journey, and congratulations on, the opportunity to be able to serve your community and people who are receptive to yoga. And I know that you're making an impact and bringing your joy to people that need it as well as these tools and techniques. So thank you so much for being part of this community and for such a beautiful share. You hit every point. That was thank you. Thank you. And yep, we've got comments. You might not be able to see the chat, so I'll let you. I'll show you too. Beautiful sharing. Yes, so beautiful. Thank you, Celeste. So just some kind comments from the audience too. And okay, Who would like to popcorn themselves onto the hot seat next? Oh, great. Deva.
Hi, good evening. My name is Deva Hardeep Singh. Um, I go by he and him. I identify as a gay male. Um, Grew up in Oklahoma, live on my tribal reservation now, the Muskogee Nation. My tribal blood is in the Yuchi lineage. And so I was kind of blessed growing up in both the white culture and the Indian culture. And it was quite interesting as well, the 1921 race riot, the African Americans that marched out of Tulsa settled in Alsuma community, which was a black community, 51st and Mingo. Broken Arrow schools didn't want them. Tulsa schools didn't want them. Also didn't want the indigenous. So Union High School was a consolidated high school of blacks and indigenous. So I grew up in a very diverse school, and which I look back on my life, and it was a great period in America. And sticking with the theme tonight, how I got into yoga was through a studio in a town called Repressa, kind of like the word repressing, called Repressa. And the name of the studio, a lot of people know the name. It's called Folsom State Prison. And 30 years ago, I was introduced to yoga through the Siddha Yoga um, Prison Project. And John Friend taught us Hatha Yoga. And me and four lifers petitioned Father Thomas Keating in Snowmass, Colorado. And we started the first inmate ran, led, centering prayer group in the world at Folsom State Prison. And 30 years later, that same meditation group is still going on within 6 prisons with over 6,000 men and women meditating in California prisons. And it was kind of interesting looking at where we were starting. It seemed like the same thing was going on with James Fox with yoga at San Quentin, and everything is succinct. Well, you get out, you get busy, you kind of move away from your practices that you have. And COVID kind of did a number on me because I was working as a social justice journalist, writing international articles on social justice issues, and was just frustrated and angry at our lack of response, the political unrest that was part of the dialogue. That in my brain, I'm like, how the hell does politics get involved with a medical science pandemic? You don't mix the two. But anyway, so I knew I needed to change my life, and I wanted something more than just moving from one social justice article and then focusing in on another one. And it just gets grueling and tired. And I've been involved with social justice work most of my life. Um, but when you mix alcohol and drugs, you make bad decisions. That part kind of escaped my young mind. But a lot of people say, how can you be involved in social justice and still end up in prison? Well, ask Fleet Mall that started the Buddha Dharma Prison Project. Alcohol and drugs kind of is the precursor for spiritual enlightenment. But And I just, from day one, I approached this class with something to reignite that spiritual connection that I had 30 years ago when I was practicing inside myself for hours and hours and hours and hours. And, you know, my experience in prison is just as neurodivergent as my real world. But, you know, there was some positive things going on in not only my life, but other people's lives, because we were going deep in Eastern philosophy, trying meditation, trying yoga, talking about it on the yard, talking to lifers. I never will forget, this Yaqui Indian guy came into the prison yard, and this one lifer hugged him and said, "I have been wanting to talk to a Yaqui Indian for 30 years. And this Indian brother, convict, he just said, "Well, brother, I've been trying for damn near 30 years to get in here and just finally got it right." You know? And there's a lot of humor that prisoners play on themselves and others. It's not self-deprecating, it is just trauma management. Mm-hmm. But going through this course, it showed me that I don't need to be on stage. I don't need to be the director. I don't need to do this. That my first goal, day one of yoga teachers class, was to become my first student. And so I delved into the practices, and I began to see my thinking change again. I began to see my compassion came back, and my motivation in wanting to share yoga is not so much, I have 30 years given that nothing major happens to me medically. But I got 30 years, and I don't want to be angry and upset. I would much rather spend those 30 years involved with Prison Yoga Project, in taking this opportunity to those in need. But I'll also be serving my indigenous community locally and the economically challenged, because I live on Social Security disability. I know what it's like to just go, oh shit, you know, do I get this book that I've been waiting forever for, or do I go ahead and buy me enough ramen noodles so that I have enough food to eat for 10 days or whatever? I get it. And so I think what this project has done for me is give me the tools to not only rejuvenate my life, but it's given me the tools to present it in a loving way to all people, no matter their color, their gender, their sexual preferences, their non-sexual preferences. Today's young kids are just weird. But anyway, sounding like my grandfather. But, you know, this program works. And it works because there is over 5,000 year history, if not older, that proves that this system works. And it didn't work so great under the monastic setting and having a guru, but it seems to be working in this householder movement of yoga and accessible yoga, trauma-informed, and to do what you can with where you're at. So my takeaway from all this is the depth of this material was profound. I have over 40-year history of writing articles for the American Indian movement, Cesar Chavez, to different things with the Palestinians. I have worked with a presidential candidate who was from Vermont, and he likes to have a nice heavy jacket on in wintertime in Washington. And he taught me that no matter what your age is, an idea that you are worthy of medical care, you are worthy of living, you are worthy of being here, is what Prison Yoga Project teaches. Is it brings us compassion to forgive ourselves first, and then it moves into being able to deliver that in a loving way to where we don't harm someone else. But I've never seen it presented as succinct as it is with Prison Yoga Projects. And the social justice and the leadership comes through along with the yoga philosophy. But it's presented in a safe way to where each student feels safe to experiment and explore and see what's right for their body today. Doesn't mean it's going to be right tomorrow, or it can't get better, or it may get worse. Who knows? But all I need to do is show up and, as Kamani said, put my 10 toes on the mat. And it's recharged me, and I feel like I am fully equipped for the next 30 years with what my focus is going to be, not only for myself, to better myself, but to better our communities. And as we collectively look at what's transpired in the last day, it just reminds me of something that I would just like to just plant as a seed with my fellow students that have just graduated along with me a couple weeks ago. I remember growing up, as I said, in the country, being exposed to the AME churches, loved the black gospel. I loved how you could participate. It wasn't like television that you could go, come on, sister. Come on, brother, bring it. I was like a little kid going, hey, man, I can get involved in this. And we had a drought. And the leader of the AME church stood up, shook his head. And, man, when he shook his head, you knew you were in for trouble. And he said, we're here tonight to pray for rain, and not a single one of you have brought an umbrella. And what this yoga teacher training does is it gives us that automatic umbrella that we can shield others from harm. And we can assist them to where they can learn about their own umbrella. And that's what I love about Prison Yoga's project, Yoga, Social Justice, and Leadership, is it's a program that works. And thank you for letting me be a part of this community.
Thank you so much for your rich share. And we love having you be part of this community. Yeah, and sharing this work with your Indigenous community is really important. Another population that is highly overrepresented in our prisons. So bringing this work to your community is important. And you being in the training, having been incarcerated before, brings a perspective to the group and the community that they wouldn't get elsewhere. So thank you for showing up tonight too and sharing with our community and being here. Thank you. And who would like to be welcomed in next? Tiffany, did you raise your hand? Awesome, awesome.
There we go. I got the wrong link. I apologize for being late. Everybody knows that's like my pet peeve is tardiness. So I apologize.
It was good. It's been a day. So you're here and it's perfect and you're right on time. So thank you.
Awesome. I want to say hi to Devin, Sabitri. I miss you already. It's only been like, what, a week or two, and I miss you. I miss you guys. Man, so yeah, what a good segue in. This has been the most positive, life-changing experience I've ever had. I'm a disabled veteran. I went through a lot of crap in the military, like most of us do. I've never been incarcerated myself. My ex-spouse, both of them, were incarcerated. But I'm institutionalized from the military. And one of the most important things I learned through this training is that the responses are very similar. When you come out of the military and when you come out of incarceration, you have very similar responses to stimuli to outside world, because it's a different kind of outside world. And that really helped me. I think it was one of our first weeks of training. It was either Kamani or Danny was talking about how you can't run in prison. There's no running. And I thought about, wow, that's the same as the military, because if you're running, there's a problem. Like something's going on where somebody's going to die. And I realized how often we just sit in our trauma response. Once you leave incarceration, once you leave, an institutionalized setting, everything moves so fast and you're not prepared for that. You're not equipped for it either. And so it puts you in a permanent state of hypervigilance. And I have survived this way for almost 20 years now. And then along came Prison Yoga Project, and there's somewhere in the training that says, get ready for the mind F. But it's your whole life, really. It's going to shake up and change your whole life, not in a bad way, in a difficult way, because you're forced to look at yourself under a lens that might be uncomfortable. But if you can do it, there's this amazing personal growth that will take place. In addition to getting to help an underserved and horribly treated population, from a selfish standpoint, you gain a new understanding of yourself. For me, my anger and my PTSD has been out of control, where to the point it's almost got me in trouble a few times because I didn't know how to turn that off. And in fact, today, the Air Force Academy just had their graduation, and I live close enough that I saw, the Thunderbirds flying over today, and it was great, but it also made me sad because I miss being on the flight line. And then I ran into their head crew chief today while I was out and got to talking to him. And he said he's getting ready to retire. And I told him, I said, make sure you do a transition program, because it's rough when you get out. If you've been in for 20 plus years, he's been in for 24 years. And I said, okay, well, make sure you find a transition program with meditation or yoga that is, trauma informed if you can, because they don't prepare you for how to act when you get out. So like it already made a difference. I started teaching yoga in 2014, I think it was. And I certified through Holy Yoga because I was actually kind of raised in like almost a borderline cult, as I found out now that I'm away from it. And so I stayed with Holy Yoga to stay in that thing, because I was told if you did yoga, you go to hell. So I kind of halfway got in, like, okay, yeah, right. So like, okay, if I do this, then I won't go to hell. But I missed, I can say the one thing that was really good in there is the extra anatomy training. We had 25 hours of extra anatomy training, and it was great. And it still helps to this day, because I have a lot of injuries from the service that I'm able to do a lot of modifications and help other people with their injuries, because I've unfortunately had so many injuries that I'm like a walking doctor's office. So this program it's like Deva said, it was such a life immersion program, because we all just committed hard. Kamani was one of our graduates, and he was, formerly incarcerated, and we all made the pact on the first night to stick with each other. We had a small group. I thought I was too traumatized to teach, to help anybody. I wasn't going to cry. um, I thought I was too traumatized to help anyone. I thought I'm just going to get in the way of this healing process for other people. And Kamani talked me into staying. And I realized since then that the only way for me to process my trauma and for it to make sense to me is to use it to help other people. So I've been in therapy also, and the combination of the two has made me such a better person. Between the military, my ex-husband was in a motorcycle club, so I come from a background of extreme violence. And it's always been my go-to solution. You know, you punch somebody in the face and you ask questions later. And that has really changed for me. And especially in the last few weeks, it's really been apparent to me what a better person I have become because of this training. And I can honestly say it saved my life. I was in a dark place when I came here too. And it's helped me balance out a lot. It's helped me reach out to community. It's given me a purpose and a drive. Taught me to ask for help, which is something most people, when they come out of incarceration in the military, don't ask for help. My water heater blew up and I had no problems calling my neighbor saying, hey, I don't know what to do. Will you come help me? And I wouldn't have been able to do that at the beginning of this, like 5-6 months ago. It's personally for me, I can't even wait until I get in to the prison system to help. I'm in Colorado Springs, and we obviously have a huge military population, but our veteran population is huge. All the violent stories you hear about downtown here, it's people that are active, are veterans. PTSD and alcohol are a bad combination, and there's nothing they're doing to counteract it. So I figure I would like to start in the county jail and work. I don't leave anybody out. So the ultimate plan is 1 day a week for everyone, 1 day a week for veterans. And also I've been talking to some people to figure out how to get a program started at the Warrior Transition Unit out at Fort Carson. There's 65,000 active duty soldiers on this base. And I guarantee you 98% of them are rolling around loaded up here and in here in a bad way. So I figure if we can start there, maybe it keeps them out of El Paso County Jail as well. And go in there and just, do what I can, be transparent and let them know, yeah, you can be traumatized and still make it. It's hard. And you have to be very honest with yourself, like radical honesty with yourself and those around you if you want to make it. But do the training, absolutely. I'm already looking at more training, like what can I do next to be better. I'm looking at community college now to take Spanish because I feel like it'll help for my location so I can teach more people. I'm starting a yoga group within my dance troupe. And they have no idea. They think it's like yoga. Like they have no idea what's about to happen to them. I have a bunch of traumatized friends that are about to get better. So I can never say thank you enough for what this program has done for me and the people it's brought me, that I know I have family for life. And I am so grateful for this, and I cannot wait to get in there and give back.
Thank you so much for your beautiful share, Tiffany. I feel like
Thank you.
there was a couple pieces that I just like want to say, like bring these words back in, like radical honesty. That's what I was thinking the whole time you were speaking. Community, Sangha, which is so important. It's also why I love what I do, right? Because we get to like, yeah, everyone, come on, let's come together. Let's do this, right? And we're not going up the mountain alone. And then you actually brought in something that I've been kind of feeling and playing with is preventative. right? You're like, okay, like actually what's communities, like where can I serve that might be preventative? Because speaking again in radical honesty, I love what we do, but there's also sometimes a lens that I feel like sometimes it's important, but sometimes it feels like band-aid work. We're like, okay, we're getting to people at the end of their rope. So how can we find the root? How can we find where this rope is being started? So yeah, thank you for bringing that in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was kind of my motivation as I've been in therapy is do the least amount of medication possible, right? You want to treat the root cause and not medicate the symptoms. And it's the same with yoga and with mental, like get to the root cause and quit treating the symptoms, because you'll never figure out where the symptoms are coming from if you don't get to that root cause. And you have to be radically honest and ready to look at ugly stuff with yourself. And if you can do that, oh man, it opens the door to freedom. It really does. I got my prison yoga hoodie on, man. This is a feeling that I understand at my core now. And I wouldn't have had this freedom without you. And it doesn't matter where I go or what happens to me. I will have this freedom in here and in here now. And I wouldn't have gotten it anywhere else. So thank you. And everybody who's going to train, good luck. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep showing up with our community, show up to webinars, more trainings, keep us updated on everything you're doing, please. And we have two more beautiful participants. We have Sabitri, who's joining us from India, and I have a feeling she woke up. I just did a little bit of a Google, and I have a feeling you woke up at probably 4:30 in the morning to come and be with us. Your commitment is unmatched, which is amazing. And we also Paige to speak with us as well. And Paige is a neighbor of mine. She's here in San Diego too. So, and then after both of you speak, we'll transition into a question and answer period. But do either one of you feel called to go next? Okay, awesome. I will pin Paige.
Is my volume on?
It's great.
Okay. Hi, I'm Paige. My pronouns are she and her, and I live in the other end of the county from Blair in the northern part of San Diego County in Kumi Island. And my yoga journey started about almost 25 years ago, right before I turned 30. I started doing Tai Chi at the local library down the street from my house. And then that kind of got me down that road of mindfulness. And then I think it was my gym or somewhere I took my first yoga class, and then quickly took an Ashtanga class out at the coast and walked out of there an hour and a half later. And I'm like, what just happened? I don't understand. But it quickly became a really important part of my life. So I've been practicing for 25 years. Sorry, my dog it's this crazy time. I hope he's not too disturbing. I stepped away from it for a brief time about 17 years ago, and I went back to school to change careers and became a high school English teacher. But probably in the last 10 years, it's become really foundational for me, my own practice, going from much more of the Ashtanga, which I loved in the time, but very physical and power and accomplishment, to really being one of the things that has helped, one of the positive habits that really helped me to stay grounded and to keep my heart open as a teacher for 16 years. I work in a lower socioeconomic area with a lot of kids with a lot of trauma, a lot of dysfunction. So it's always been my practice. And I would never really was considered doing a training. And then COVID, and I was teaching and working from home. And I think I wasn't planning on it, but I guess I started following PYP on Instagram from a recommendation from someone at my studio. And I did the foundational training and like that. Oh, I have time. Why not? This is interesting. And then I got the email about their inaugural PYP, the training with Priscilla and Celeste and Patty, if she's there. So I think what led me to do it was being home and not really feeling that purpose of being connected with my kids and feeling just sort of what's happening in our world, and it just rolled out, just happened. So yeah, it was an amazing experience. And for work, I'm so excited. Right after we finished the training in October, I met with Bill and was hired as a facilitator here in San Diego County. And we've been waiting for it to open. And I think if things go right, we're going to go tour Donovan State Prison on Tuesday. So I can get my first. I don't have any really deep experience with incarceration in my own life. I have a few people I know who've been impacted, but it'll be my first time going inside a facility. So I'm excited, if that's the right word, but also, I'm sure when I get closer, the nervousness. And so we're going to go tour and look at our practice facility. So I'm so excited for that, because I don't have a desire to teach in a studio or do practice anywhere else. So what did I take for the training? I'm looking at my list. I think the training, all the exploration and the reflection was really so powerful in the community. And I think and Blair talked about having a Sangha. I have my own Sangha I've been a member of for like 15 years, but really it reinforces that finding a community of people that understand what you want to do and why you want to do it. And I think that's really valuable. Some are temporary. I mean, I call them like temporary groups or temporary tribes, right? When you're in a training, it's so intimate. And I think our group was really great. And we still have connections here and there, but I think for me, it's like this temporary, really meaningful transition time. And then it blossoms from there. So I think finding a community of people that understand you and why you want to do the work, because we're not all surrounded by people all the time who understand what, the mindfulness practice and the spirituality or even the yoga, the internal part of it, right? So people that understand your language is so important. And it's reassuring that there are people out there who want to do work, who want to do this kind of work on behalf of other people in our world and not just ourselves. So I think that's really important. And that for me, it reinforced the fact that I think I'm ready. I am ready to do this work. I will continue to teach. Teaching is my gig, for probably another 8 to 9, 10 years. But I'm seeing this folding in, and however it develops and how often I can go and practice, and facilitate. But I see it, growing into part of my future, wherever that leads. So I think it's really a valuable training. And I would say too, and one thing I remember saying before, it doesn't matter if you have 25 years of yoga experience or if you've taken 2 classes, or maybe you even just thought about doing yoga, because we've had people that came into our cohort, they had never done yoga until they decided to do this work. They were touched by incarceration or something else brought them to the program. And they had brought some of the most valuable experiences to our training. So I would say that what's the most valuable thing is that you think you want to do some type of work that's going to benefit others. And the yoga can be taught. The yoga you can learn, right? The asanas are learnable. It's all there. So yeah, I just highly encourage it. And the work is doable. A plan kind of works, and kind of try to keep a flow going. That helps, but everyone has their study habits. But yeah.
Thank you so much for adding your beautiful perspective as well. And thinking of you still being a school teacher and doing this work, I mean, how invaluable for your students, right? And what kind of a role model that you are walking into the class and walking into the school being like, oh my God, my teacher's a yoga teacher for incarcerated people, right? I feel like that instantly opens up compassion for your students in a way that I think a lot of other students might not have the opportunity, right? So I'm so excited for you to continue to be a role model in your community, and I'm so excited for you to be facilitating. And I can't interview you on the podcast in 6 months about your experience and how it started and how it's going now. So
Definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
And I'm going to pin Savitri next. Hi, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for inviting me here. Once again, giving the choice to participate, that really meant a lot for me, because this word choice really made such a big difference in my life after I became a participant, learner of this cohort. So I am Shabitri. I am from India. My pronoun would be she and her. I came across yoga in 2010 when I was a student of class 11. Like, I have just completed my class 10 and I got into 11. Uh, the one very important thing during that time about that interaction with yoga was that uh, the lady to whom I went for learning yoga, she was a friend of my mother, and uh, she went through two very important surgeries in her body. One was hysterectomy, and one was she was a breast cancer survivor, and both of her breasts were, surgery. So I think at that point of time, I was more curious to understand that how can a survivor like her actually teach something like this at an age of 50. So I went to meet her, and it was completely breath work. She taught me pranayam, and I was so much fascinated. So I think that was my first connection with yoga. Uh, as a childhood abuse survivor and, major intimate partner abuse, I had the experience uh, of sensing dissociation in my body, yet understanding that I didn't have any name for it, because I was totally unaware of these terms. And trauma being a very subjective term, my body memory carried everything. How much support I, tried to give myself, my brain, the feed, like, I tried to be extremely self-compassionate. But I think that was not enough, because cognition is not always an answer to resolving trauma and toward, like, push towards healing. So I came across prison yoga project in 2020 with the foundational course, and I was so fascinated with the entire work that PYP was doing. Last year I came across the 200 hours PYP training, and I think today that I'm talking on this forum about my struggle with my abuse. This is I think the first time that I'm talking about my experience, my adverse experience, and I think the entire credit goes to you. And because I have never felt that I would be able to even talk about it in a public forum, or to, to today I understand that how much uh, shame and how much guilt were associated with this entire feeling, because I come from a country where there is always a sense of uh, hierarchy between the victim, between the feeling of victim and a victimhood. So it's always like it's the fault of the victim. So every time I have spoken about this with my friends, they're like, you should have been out of the relationship. You at the every time it felt like that I was the person who was to be blamed for being there, for. So that there was constantly this guilt, this sense of shame that was feeding me. And I think when I became a part of this cohort, and there was so much of openness, and I'm so grateful to Jen and Chanda for holding the space with so much of grace, so much of patience, and constantly giving the agency to the entire cohort to come up and speak, to cultivate the option of choice. I think that's amazing. So I'm so thankful to be here and share. I really want to take away this learning, and I am already connected with Alaknanda Roy, who who does a lot of work with the incarcerated population in our state in India. and she told me that, I might have the opportunity to go there and work with the incarcerated female, the from the women correctional homes, as they call it. And I remember I was talking to her and constantly remembering my experience from this cohort. And as I was, sharing my understanding of restorative justice, how much important it is, how much important it is as the need of the hour. And she was totally, telling that, yeah, you are right. And I could so much resonate with the learning that I have gained from this wonderful cohort. I think this is an amazing training session that you are having. And I feel anybody and everybody who wants to make a difference in their lives and tries to connect with the community as a very fundamental part of living and giving and sharing, I think should pursue this course, because this is a life changing course, like everybody shared so far, a transformative journey, a self explorative journey. And I never knew that, being like online, being a part of this cohort through an online platform could do so much. So I am so much grateful once again, and thank you, Blair, for again inviting me to speak. And thank you, Jane, Chanda, and my wonderful peers from whom I have learned so much: Deva, Tiffany, Paige, Celeste, Meta, Kimini, of course, and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on and joining us. And from you, I've seen over and over is just your level of commitment. It is so beautiful that you show up for yourself in this community in this way. And it was a privilege for us to be a witness as well of your first public sharing, and that you can now use your lived experience as an opportunity for teaching and strength, and that you are held in that. So thank you also for your radical honesty and showing up. Thank you. Thank you. And so I think at this time, we can invite everyone in. Everyone turn on your video. Let me see, I'm gonna remove the pin and then we can see if we can go to gallery mode. So again, everything trauma informed, you're welcome not to, you're welcome to lie down, go to sleep, but we're gonna transition into some question and answer periods. So if you wanna turn your video on and it hasn't been on, you are welcome to do that now. Come into the space. Beautiful, just some nice things in the comments as well. Yeah, awesome, great. We've got people coming in and out. And I'm just trying to think of the best way of how to run this. Okay. Let's start to put some questions into the chat. Maybe that's how we could warm the chat room up. And also, I'm happy to be flexible if it doesn't work. It's a very flexible kind of day. We're just making everything work today. Are there any live trainings? Okay, this is a great question to start with. So we have seen that the transition to our virtual trainings has been so beneficial for so many people. It really gives us an opportunity to create this kind of worldwide Sangha that we would not be able to do if we had in-person meetings. So all of our trainings are online, and I hope that the people here can attest that it's not actually a barrier, that I think that it's an enhancement that we have this virtual training. So how our yoga teacher training works is, it's between 5-6 month running program, and there's a lot of self-study that you do on our website through portals. So you come and you read a chapter or a week and you show up and you learn in the space. So there's kind of this really beautiful opportunity, and maybe someone else from the training can speak to it more, that you have your own self-study and then you get to be with people, which I think doesn't always happen when you do in-person trainings. So the length of this training and the virtual aspect, I do think that it brings a lot of richness. And if anyone else wants to add to the virtual aspect, so there are live sessions and self-study. Yes, exactly. And I'm going to drop the link here now too. That's going to tell us more. It's going to tell you more about kind of the structure of our teacher training too. Let me just get this link up here, and I'll drop this for you as well. So here's even more information about the course too. But yeah, if one person wanted to kind of add the benefits of virtual, yeah, Priscilla.
Well, I was just gonna jump in real quick. Yeah, so there are once a week live meetups. They are at about maybe 2 p.m. West Coast time, and they are for, I believe it's an hour and a half. The next round, they're gonna be for an hour and a half. And then there are 2 Sunday sessions that are longer. And then, yeah, the online content you can work through at your own pace. So yeah, I just wanted to cover that quick question there.
Thank you. And anyone that's yeah,
Yeah, I enjoy.
oh,
Okay,
sorry.
Eva.
Two people.
Go, Tiffany. Go.
You want me to go? Okay. I will tell you, I am technologically challenged. I left the military and gave up on technology. I hate it. I hate Zoom normally. And this was great. I didn't have any, I had a few technical glitches with some stuff, but as a whole, it was so easy to use. And I enjoy it. Like, I look forward to our class. We can't leave each other alone. So we have like a Thursday scheduled going forward still, so we can all just check in with each other because we just love each other. And I look forward to it now. I would never be on camera for any reason. And now I'm just excited to see everybody still. So we have our family time every week. But I think that part of it, I thought it was gonna be the hardest part for me, and it was a blip. It wasn't even an issue. So if you are not a tech person, this is still a really easy thing to do.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, just to add on what Tiffany said, I live in Oklahoma Central Standard Time, but my sleep schedule, I'm up at, evening time, and I go to bed at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. I've always been that way. The classes, the modules are released at 2 a.m. Pacific time. So no matter what time schedule you're in, you get to pick and choose when to log on, go through the classes, and then it's a lot like college. We're adults. Here's your assignments. We're here. Reach out to us, reach out to each other, and you can go through this. But it's being able to go back. And after each week, Jen is so good at posting the PDF of that module so we can go back and review it. But this is an easy schedule that fits, that I saw in our cohorts: professionals, retired, non-retired, young, old, hippies, ex-hippies, new hippies, wannabe hippies, And excuse me while I'm having a neurodiverse night. I love being in my 3D glasses. It just, I love playing around with Zoom. That's it. Bye.
Thanks, Ava. I didn't know that was an option, and I might have to pull that into a webinar sometime when I'm feeling extra silly. I like them. Thank you. We have another really great question from Melody too. Is there not already, if there's not already a yoga program in the jails or prisons near you, I didn't read this, but how hard is it to get a program started? Or what is the process to start a program locally? So our amazing assistant director, Nicole, has created this onboarding training. If you are looking to start a program, whether it's after this training or after our foundational training, that will support you in basically creating a budget to then go and make conversation or start a conversation at your local prison or jail. So one thing that I think that I can probably speak for the organization when I say this, is that, yeah, I can feel confident saying this. Okay, we do believe that this work can and should be paid. And the reason why we believe that is because not only have you trained, is the energetic exchange. There's a budget for it, absolutely, at your jail or prison. That's what these programs are. These are rehabilitative programs, but we believe in sustainability. And we don't think that volunteering is sustainable, right? Because at the core of what this is relationships, and it's creating trusting relationships, right? Or creating the foundation for potentially having a trusting relationship. And that's being able to show up week after week after week after month after year. And that takes a lot if it's from a volunteer standpoint. So we want to make sure that you are compensated for your time. So that's part of this kind of onboarding and training process that we have, is that you would have the opportunity to pitch a budget to a local program. Priscilla, do you want to say anything else about that training, or anything else on that topic?
Yeah, so if and what you said was amazing, Blair. Yeah, if there is not a program near you and you want to become a PYP facilitator, Nicole and our team, I'm probably involved, will support you totally in making connections to a facility that's closest to you. We have sample letters to get the ball rolling, and then also to help you figure out how to fundraise or how to look for grants, how to apply for grants. So if you are somewhere where there is not a current PYP program, we have plenty of support to help you start one.
Great ad. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you. So then we've got another question from Ashley. This is great. You can kind of keep we've got a creature joining us too. So much happening. I love this. Okay, so you can keep the questions kind of rolling in the chat, and I can continue with that. So we've got a question from Ashley. I saw that there was a requirement to complete the course was to lead a yoga class. How would that be facilitated? Let's do two things. Priscilla, will you talk about the technical aspect of it? And then maybe we can have another participant talk about that experience of leading their first yoga class through the training.
Yeah, totally. So that you're leading a class, you would lead on Zoom. So towards the end of the training, you would select your date and time that you want to do your lesson on. And for my cohort, it was 45-minute class. So on your day, you would be on Zoom, your screen would be pinned, so you'd have a big screen, and then you would lead your class via Zoom to your other students, to the other participants. There's a whole list of what's required, a centering of this, of that, and all that stuff. So yeah, it's done via Zoom, and you get to choose the date and time that you would like to do that.
Awesome. Thanks, P. And then maybe someone could also briefly speak to their experience, because facilitating on Zoom is different from in person, but maybe some added value that you had from the experience. Yeah, Paige.
So I was part of the community class that we did. And I don't know if you did it in the second cohort, but in the first cohort, we had a community day where 5 of us, and Celeste was there too. So we taught to, I'm not sure how many people joined in, but it was a great experience. I think the valuable part too, just the teaching, and teaching, online is a strange experience, but the feedback, and it is challenging, right? I'm in a profession where I give feedback all the time, but we got, really great critique from Jen and Shonda after our sessions, positives, a lot of positives, but also, really a lot of realistic kind of, critiques on, and how, and I think all of us came so far from the beginning in actually being able to do trauma-informed, cueing and facilitating, especially those of us who came from our own practices, and to really think that we're being trauma-informed, but like we're still so steeped in our own practice. But that feedback and from them was so valuable. Like, okay, that was good, but here's how you know, to really make it accessible and to make it about not you, about, you know, the people that were there to work with, not, you know, not to teach or to be there for, but to work along with. So that was a really big educational point for me, that idea of like making it accessible and stepping away from wanting to be the center of attention.
That's a really great ad, right? So of how this yoga training differs and how this, I'll even say style of yoga is different. You know, I think that Jen in this training really gives you so many tools that you can adapt a yoga class on the spot, because just being able to be flexible, you don't know who's going to show up in your class. You don't know what level they might be at. You don't know where they are physically. You also don't know what happened in the facility or wherever you're teaching before then, right? So you're like, okay, like maybe you have like a high energy class, maybe kind of like a high energy class that you're really excited to share with them today, and you show up and everyone is wiped out, right? Maybe they were up all night or something happened earlier in the day, and you have to adapt. And so that's what I think that this training really does, is teaches you the flexibility of being able to respond to who you're teaching to. And I think that's trauma informed, and that's accessible training that you wouldn't be able to get elsewhere. Okay, great. More questions coming in. Thank you for your explanations. If you already have a 200-hour YTT and applied to become a facilitator, can you still get onboarding help before taking the PYP YTT? Yeah, okay, great question. So I think what I'll speak to more generally is, at Prison Yoga Project, we offer trauma-informed facilitation. And I know that there are more trauma-informed YTTs coming up, but this is basically the main thing that we want to see, that you have the wisdom, the knowledge, and the resources to offer to a population that you're serving. So if you already have a YTT, and you do feel that you're pretty well equipped, where I would direct you is to our foundational training. And so our foundational training, you know, I don't even think we talk about yoga until the 5th or the 6th module. Right? Like, I think our foundational training is really putting you into an understanding of the history of incarceration, specifically to the United States, talking about mental health, talking about trauma, talking about the populations that you might be working with. And that's really the most important thing that we ask that you study and know and understand if you already have yoga training. So that would be where you could start. Melody, also, if you have more questions after this, I'm very happy to schedule any time with you, or Priscilla, anyone on our team can talk to you more about this and figure out what the best route is for you personally. And that goes for anyone on the call as well. Hopefully that was a good answer. Okay, awesome. I see the thumbs up. Okay, great. I've got another thing. I started studying yoga before the pandemic and then was completely focused on working 70, 90 hours a week in behavioral health. It almost killed me. Actually, it almost killed me. Yep, I hear you on that. So I quit and have started yoga again to regenerate, but only over the past 6 or 7 weeks. My concern is about learning correct form and posture. Would it be better to work on my own form in a live class and then attend later in the cohort of your training? Also, do you have scholarships? I'll answer the last question. Yes, we have scholarships. Priscilla, will you drop the link in there? Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'll answer this quickly, and then I'd actually like for someone else in the training to answer this. So we're not really about like Iyengar based or alignment based. I think, as well as being trauma informed, we're a post lineage yoga movement. So not really following a specific guru or a teacher or a theme. Using the asana portion of yogic study to bring us into our body. That is this idea, right? Is to, as Sabitri was talking to, disassociation, right? So how can we wake up our body? And we see the poses as an opportunity to wake up our body. And the pose doesn't have to look like everyone else's. It only has to work and serve for you. So I think that you would absolutely be able to be ready for this training. You don't have to be anywhere or hit a certain goal or have your leg or your arm in a certain place to teach this work. And then does someone else want to add to maybe where they were in the training, or just kind of to speak to this correct form and posture? Um, yeah, Tiffany.
So this for me, I had a 200-hour yoga teacher training coming into it. But I went through a lot of stuff medically. I had spine surgery. I got a really, really rare condition where I almost died. Well, I guess I died and they brought me back. So my body felt really foreign to me. So it was really important to me to take teacher training again and to take one away from the Christian church so that I was out of that box. And it really helped me personally, because I obviously for teaching a long time and then having spine surgery, my body is not the same. It doesn't do the same things. And so for me, this training really helped me slow it down and focus on modifications and what works for my body. And that allowed me to, when I taught my final class, I was able to do a lot of modifications because I was nervous, because it's hard for my body. It's hard for me, for my body at this point still to make it, a full class. And I was nervous. But because they, through this training, I learned how to, not injure myself and how to go slow and listen. It's totally changed my practice too. Like I learned like hatha yoga, like your basic alignment yoga, but it's never been like this. And I find the benefit for your body when you actually listen, to your body. It's incredible. And there's so many in this training too. There's so many people, the instructors and then people within your class that have various different injuries that you get to learn from them, how to do different things. So I feel like I don't want to say like yoga for injured people, but really this is like yoga for everyone. Everybody in every space can do this yoga and benefit from it in a massive way. I wish everybody had this. Everybody should have this.
Thank you. That was a beautiful ad.
And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hog. It's just, I come from a background of being in radio, producing live concerts, working with some of the most amazing talent in the world. And how I was blessed to be a part of that is even more mysterious to me. But when I first started this program, I was like, oh yeah, I need to get a website. I need to start looking at templates. I need to do a professional photo shoot. I got a friend of mine who I used to manage, who's a great guitar player, but now he's a photographer. All this crap was going through my mind, and I I had my whole yoga studio planned out before January 20th's first class. Halfway through the class, I wadded up that, canceled my website that I was paying, money for. I now use a free website that doesn't cost me a dime, and it's just as well because I don't charge for yoga, so there's no reason for me to have a PayPal account. But the point is, I walked in with all these preconceived ideas. I even bought a lovely book that I no longer refer to that has 2,900 asana poses. And I thought, Jesus Christ, how the world am I going to memorize this crap? I don't care. Yoga works. Put 10 toes on the mat, as Kamani said. If you need a blanket, use a blanket. If you need to use a wall, use a wall. I'm just finishing up a deal with Accessible Yoga, and Juvena. I mispronounce names so bad. But Mr. Heyman, we'll call him that. You know, he had us do bed yoga, and I was like, who the hell is going to be doing bed yoga? And I thought, wait a second. I'm turning 60 this year. I think bed yoga sounds good. Prison Yoga Project teaches you how to love yourself with a 5,000-year-old system, and there is no right or wrong answer. I don't care if you're a Christian, a non-Christian, a Satanist, Wicca, whatever. Yoga will awaken a spiritual awakening within you, but you get to choose how you frame that.
Mm.
No one's here is going to tell you that you got to do it this way. And I so love Jen's evaluation because she's like, I thought you said you're disabled, and I'm looking at these poses and I'm like, how the, but this one pose, I just never saw that version ever done. And, you know, my neurodivergent mind is like, yes, I did something no one else could do. But in reality, it's like, oh shit, she's been doing this for 30 years. Obviously, I'm not doing it right at all. And so it's a journey. You know, love yourself enough to go through this experience because it'll transform your life in ways, whether or not you become a facilitator, whether or not you become a teacher, this will change your life. And thus, one person at a time, we're walking in our communities, changing people's life one person at a time. And that's what this program is for. And when you're sitting inside of a jail cell or a prison cell, I never will forget a lifer, my first night said, you, pointing the finger at me, said, you've got to admit your best thinking got you here. And I'm telling you, the best practice to get you out of that is yoga. That's it.
Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge the time because we've gone a little bit over. And I don't know, maybe there's childcare or other commitments or dinner, or you want to unplug for the day. So I want to honor all of the potential plans or no plans that might be after this session. So my first thank you goes to the amazing graduates that have joined us this evening and shared their personal journey of yoga. Priscilla has just dropped a really great email into the chat. If you have any questions about tonight, any questions about registering or scholarships, or just really figuring out what the best path is for you, you can absolutely contact us at this email. I also want to thank Priscilla for showing up and absolutely being an integral part of this community. And thank you for being here with me tonight. Just, you know, some tech stuff and getting everyone in the same room, you know, wrangling all of the cats can feel frustrating. And so it was really important that you were here. And so I just want to say thank you. And really your going through this program has been invaluable to us as a team as well. So I just want to shout out to your work and what you're doing for your community too. So thank you. And then everyone in our community that showed up or might start to be part of our community, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this conversation. I hope that you found these stories valuable. We do almost bi-weekly webinars where we have different people in the transformative justice space. We have current facilitators with Prison Yoga Project. We have previously incarcerated friends and folks, maybe people that have done our programming. So you can find all of this information. They're always free as well. They're absolutely free. We offer free conversations and free educational content through these webinars. On our website. So under the events page, you know, there's other ways you can follow us and get involved. Like I said, we have our foundational training. So thank you again for everyone being here. Last quick question. Are there people who work with the reentry population doing yoga? Yes, absolutely. So there are people doing reentry. There are people working with people who are have addiction, right? There's so many places where you can bring this trauma-informed yoga. And maybe this is kind of what I'll wrap up with, is that, this training isn't just for working with incarcerated populations. What I think the heart of our training is, again, it's yoga, social justice, and leadership. But it's how can we bring yoga outside of a studio setting? Right. I think so many of us can feel that yoga in a studio, maybe it's how we got started, but maybe it wasn't the most comfortable journey for us. Actually, maybe it took a lot to even show up to a yoga class because we felt really uncomfortable in these spaces. So the idea is bringing yoga, and it's not just yoga, the physical poses, right? It's yogic philosophy, karma yoga, bhakti yoga. So bringing yoga out of a studio setting. So I think that's really at the heart of what we want to offer. So again, I'll stop chatting. Thank you everyone so much for being here. There's so many ways you can be involved in this community, and absolutely just all of my adoration for all of the beautiful participants and all of your great study and transformation. Thank you for being here.